Tamra, good to see you. Thanks for making a bit of time to come and have a chat with me. When we spoke a few weeks back, you were telling me about some fascinating stuff that you're doing with skin. Why don't you just explain to folks what you're up to?
Okay, fantastic. Um, so the interesting thing about skincare is that most products just sit on your skin.
Mm,
And no matter what the product says or what the marketing says, it actually doesn't get to where it's supposed to.
right.
So the holy grail in the skincare industry is actually getting fibroblasts to create the collagen that helps build and keep your skin in the healthy range that you're looking for. As skin gets older, it gets drier, the wrinkles, everything. So you're losing collagen. Fibroblasts create collagen. Getting the fibroblasts to do what you want them to do, that's just not something that normal skincare can handle because molecules are too big. They sit on the skin. They do some, you know, immediate work that makes your skin look pretty, but it doesn't actually affect the skin like marketing ploys say they do. So, what we're doing is working on a delivery system that actually disrupts the skin barrier in a positive way
Right.
to get the um, active ingredients down through the epidermis and the dermis into where the fibroblasts are in order to help create collagen and boost skin productivity.
Okay. And let me ask you how, I mean, it's a bit of an odd career move. I mean, how did you end up doing that? I mean, I don't know many people that leave school and say, I want to do something about skin. I mean, how did you end up on this kind of?
Um, so, gosh, going on 3 years now, I started a GLP-1. And like everybody else who has ever lost a lot of weight in a short amount of time, my skin did not like it.
Okay.
It said, no, you're just gonna, have extra skin hanging around, and there's nothing you can do unless you go to a plastic surgeon and have it physically removed. Um, and that just wasn't something I was looking for at the time. So I started doing a bunch of research and listening to, watching videos and really, diving into what actually works and what doesn't. And I then found, well, okay, so I was on Facebook. Not gonna lie, I was on Facebook and I got caught up in a advertisement for a specific oil.
Mhm.
And it claimed that it was going to firm up my skin and make it put it back to where it was. And, yeah, that sounds great, but I'm always skeptical about
Mm.
anything that says, oh, yeah, this is perfect. You're going to be in no time flat back to your size zero or whatever. No, that's just not going to happen. So I dove in and I read the ingredients and was, well, skeptical, obviously.
Mm.
Um, how 7 different oils mixed together were going to do anything. There were no active ingredients that I had been used to. Um, there was it was just oils, and I was like, how is that going to do anything? So I actually took the ingredients and I put it into Claude and asked Claude to examine the product and tell me what it was going to do, and what it could and could not do. And that became a game for me. I would look up all different products and put it into Claude, and we would play a game. What is this going to do? What's marketing BS? What's, real? What could happen? And that actually launched into what I call an ADHD flare, because turns out I am autistic and have ADHD, which I didn't know until recently. Thank you, perimenopause. And so I spent days, and days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months researching different products and playing the game. What works, what doesn't work, what could, what couldn't, what is marketing and what is actual clinically real. And what that led to was me wondering how we could fix the system. So I asked Claude. Claude and I went through and we created a, how do I want to put it? A delivery system, basically, that, goes in and tells your skin barrier, this is a good thing. You don't want to push it out. Let's absorb it and get it to where it needs to go.
And let me ask you, how did you? Okay, so you realized that most of these products didn't really work very well, and you realized that the
Yeah.
problem was actually not so much the ingredients, but getting under the skin, if you like.
Correct.
How did you then figure out a solution to that problem? I mean, do you come at this from the perspective of being a chemist or something? I mean, how? Because there's
No.
a bit of a jump there.
No, actually, I just really dove in on the AI aspect and had it do all the research. It pulled up
Wow.
paper after paper after paper, in a way that I would never have been able to do.
Mm.
And it found research on this specific chemical that had been researched by other companies. And it's been documented that it actually goes and is not only can it get through the skin barrier, but is also anti-inflammatory and it's really healthy.
Mm.
Now, when we hear things like acids, that is something that everybody in skincare knows. You know about good acids for skin, whether it be a hydroxy or an alpha hydroxy or whatever, or the one that is absolutely escaping me. Sorry about that. It's my brain. It's having a brain fart. Actually absorbs water and draws water into the skin. It's a major skincare, and it's absolutely escaping me at the moment. But it is an acid, and so the piece that we dialed in on is also an acid, but when it's added into the formulas, it really does help deliver the
Right.
system. And a lot of companies are doing great work with lipidizing and, creating smaller molecules with, each of the, they're putting it and it's making it smaller and it'll go through, but it still doesn't get to where it needs to go just yet. They're still working on it. So that was just basically it. It was me really wanting to fix my own skin that led down this rabbit hole and created a delivery system that then launched my company.
Hmm. So, I mean, I imagine it must have been quite difficult, given that you're not from that background, it must have been quite
Mhm.
difficult to get things up and running.
It is. It is very difficult. I have, I'm not a chemist. I have been in the business world for
Mm.
going on 30 years. Um, so getting a business up and running is not as difficult as getting funding when you don't have the background. I
Mm.
can't just go to a big lab and say, hey, I've got this going on and, I just need the money to get it pushed. So I'm putting myself out there. I'm doing what I need to do to launch this company. I have a really great co-founder that I'm working with who is a chemist. Thankfully, I did
Right.
find a chemist to put in my back pocket. Um, and I am getting him out of his comfort zone because he is a um, biopolymer material scientist. So introducing him to skincare was and
Mm.
still is a fun experience. Um, but finding out that you need a lot of funds. There is a lot of testing that needs to be done.
Mm.
Um, so we're working on, I'm learning how to become a grant writer. Did not know I needed to do that. That's something that's fun. So not only am I a CEO and um, a CFO and head R&D, I'm also now a grant writer, which was not on my that's not my wheelhouse, but I'm making it
Mm.
because when you are really a solo entrepreneur, you wear all the hats.
Mm. And in terms of the kind of journey that you're on, I mean, what sort of challenges do you see in front of you now?
Um, the challenges definitely have been finding the team
Mm.
that makes sense. I started off just me, and I was lucky enough to find a business lawyer who he believes in me, and he's been like a rock for me. So I've been able to lean on him for everything that I needed from incorporations, NDAs,
Mm.
all the lawyery stuff that again, I'm not trying to wear a lawyer hat. I did not go to school for that. Um, so he has been amazing. Um, Finding Kelvin, the chemist, my PhD co-founder, was great. I couldn't have gotten this far without having that. So definitely building the team has been the most daunting because you have to put yourself out there.
Mm.
And I don't know about all y'all, but having ADHD and a little bit of autism on the side makes it really hard for me to communicate what I need and what I'm looking for without over explaining and um, going off on tangents or there's a lot that I've found with my communication skills that I thought I had aren't quite as um, well, there I go again, um, as put together as I used
Mm.
to think it was.
Yeah.
Things have definitely changed as perimenopause hit and the um, all the barriers came down, and all of a sudden the
Mm.
ADHD and the autism are full frontal, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, hi, how are you?"
Well, you seem to be doing pretty well at the moment, so I mean
No, I
that's
appreciate
pretty
that.
good. So in terms of, I mean, so you've identified this problem, which is really the delivery system. So it's not so much it's getting them to the right bit of the skin, if you
Yeah.
see. So what sort of impact are you looking to have? I mean, just give us a sense of where you're going with this. I know you're not
Oh,
quite there yet, but
yeah, no, that is the cool thing about this is, um, while it started as wanting my own skincare line to
mm,
help me and help, other people like me who have gone on the same weight loss journey, it went completely tangented because my brain did what it normally does. And I started thinking about, well, if we can harness this in regular skincare, what about people who have really experienced trauma
mm.
and their skin is completely disrupted? How can we help them?
So can I just ask, I mean, when you say trauma, just explain what you mean by that.
Okay.
When you talk about
So,
people with those kind of skin problems, I mean, what are you referring to exactly?
okay. So you can think about, okay. So right now we are focused on two paths. One is a path towards burn care.
Right.
So the traumatic experience of going through a fire and having a either, level one, two, three, or four trauma caused by a fire to your skin. Your
Yeah.
skin
Yeah.
can go from a a sunburn to blistered to completely melting off because of heat exposure
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
chemical exposure. That is some serious trauma. Um, and right now in wound care, there's a lot of topicals, but you're dealing with an application to traumatized skin,
Mm,
which could also lead to a traumatic experience for the patient or for the person
mm,
who is applying that, because nobody wants to be the one causing anybody pain
mm,
or discomfort. So, right now, our focus is on two different paths. We're looking at making a better product for burns,
mm.
um, throughout the levels of,
Yeah. Yeah.
whether it be your, level one's sunburn or tiny little, burn in the kitchen, which I am a burner. I'm constantly burning myself in the kitchen. So, something that I completely understand. Um, so that you can go to the grocery store or the drugstore, grab a treatment that has our um, patent pending delivery system to
Mm.
help the wound actually heal faster, up to helping in a burn care unit who is
Yeah.
trying to deal with either grafts or bandage changes, and making that less traumatic.
And what's the other pathway? You mentioned two pathways.
And the other pathway is a genetic disorder that has it's. I was practicing this earlier today because this word is really hard for me to say. Epidermolysis bullosa.
Okay.
It's
I'm not going to say that
um,
either.
yeah, yeah. I actually had to practice it. It's EB for short.
Yeah.
There are four different levels of it as well. There's standard EB, there's DEB, there's JEB, and KEB. Um, and what it is, like I said, it's a genetic disorder where the um, white blood cells, where the skin is being attacked by the body. The body's
Yeah.
basically rejecting its own skin, and it's it can and start in because it is genetic. It can start prenatal and neonates. Um, Babies come out with this with wounds already forming on their bodies, their tiny little bodies, because
Wow.
their immune system is attacking the skin cells. And you've got children and young adults and, dealing with constant wound care. It is a never ending battle for these individuals who have this genetic disorder.
And can I ask? I
And
mean, they're both of those kind of pathways seem to me to
mhm,
be very, very worthwhile. I mean, I've had burns and they're painful, and help with that is good. And if somebody's suffering with the kind of problems that you've just described, I mean, it must be absolutely terrible. I mean, tell me if I've got this wrong, but my understanding of the world that you're in is that there is a lot of kind of regulatory kind of
yeah,
controls
yeah,
on that. I mean,
definitely.
how have you found a way through that? Because what I've heard from other people that I've talked to about stuff like this is that that process is pretty tough.
We are still very, very new. We have not gone through FDA. We have not,
Hmm.
we're
You're
not
very early on the
anywhere near
journey.
that. We are at the beginning, super, super early. Everything that we've done has been computational modeling. Our next goal is to get into the lab and do in vivo experimentation. But that takes a lab. This is cute, but it's not true. And it takes funding, and it takes people who have the same heart that we do, who want to find,
Hmm.
and the curiosity, and who want to find the answers. That is our next step, which is why I'm a grant writer now,
Hmm.
is to apply for funding. We are looking at two different SBIR, small business grants through the government, one through
Hmm.
um, well, they're both through the National Institute of Health. One's through the National Institute of Aging, and one's through the National Institute of Arthritis, Musculoskeletal, and Skin Diseases. So NIA and NIAMS.
And how
So
confident are you that because those testing processes are obviously designed to make sure that people don't get harmed and that the technology works. And how confident are you that you're going to be able to overcome those regulatory hurdles?
with the way that we're looking at it, we're not just looking at creating the product,
Mm.
but we're also looking at creating the process in how it's actually applied. So we've got two different things. You've got not only, getting the product into the skin, but also how you're going to go about doing that. So,
Right.
you know, yes, we have a lot of, it's not a quick process. It's not going to be something
Mm.
that, all of a sudden we're going to have a product out on the market in 6 months. That's just not the way it goes. You've got
Mm.
all of, phase 1, 2, and 3 testing, as well as going through the FDA, going through regulations, getting um, everything documented. And it is going to be a long process, but because I see the need,
Mm.
and I, in my heart, and the reason, Invernadero was um, created the way we did it, um, we are all about helping people, helping the world, making the world a better place. I went into this saying my goal is to leave the world better than
Mm.
I have found it. When you go anywhere, that should be your goal. If you're not going to leave a mark, leave something better for
Which
humanity,
is which
right?
is an interesting way of looking at it because most people think that entrepreneurs are all about money, which of course is not true, is it?
No, and maybe there are some that are, in it to turn and burn their company and make as much money as they can, fast as they can, and more power to them. That's just not me. I mean, I didn't incorporate this company the standard way. We are not just an incorporation. We're not just, a business. We are a public benefit corporation, which means that a specific amount a percentage of whatever our profits end up being, wherever, whenever that is, has to go to a charitable organization, has to go to charity, has to do something for the betterment of society. It is written in our bylaws. It is who we are
And
fundamentally.
what made you decide to go down that road?
I didn't know it was even a thing. Thankfully, my lawyer did. But I think it's because of the way that I kept digging and kept trying to decide what we were focused on, how I was going to use this information that I have gathered.
Mm.
Not only do we have this topical delivery system, but while I was in my flare, I said, okay, well, if you can do this topically, what about internally in an ingestible? People are doing supplements, I watched all the documentaries on supplements too, and they still have the same delivery problem. Not everything is absorbed the way that marketing says it is. And so that created a whole nother branch for my company, that has to do with absorption. And so we have the topical delivery system, and then now we also have an internal delivery absorption system that we're patent pending there as well, that each supplement or each piece of the supplement has, a time. This is best absorbed at this time. This, 3 hours later, you've got this. 6 hours later, you've got that. So when I started thinking about that, I said, okay, well, if we can get supplementation to absorb better, then what about the starving children, the malnourished children around the world? People who are experiencing war, people are experiencing famine, people, droughts. This all happened at the same time that USAID was being dismantled. And the first thing I thought was, if USAID gets dismantled and all of that food that product that they use for malnourished children, to get the calories, that goes away. And how can I, or how can my company, take what we've learned about help, supplementation and getting nutrients to where it needs to go? How can we help in that situation?
So what you're saying is that this issue about the delivery system not being effective, it's an issue in skincare, but it's also an issue in nutrition. That's what you're saying?
Correct.
And you
Yeah,
want to do
correct.
something about both? Yeah.
Yeah. So it just really is all about optimizing how your body works with what you're putting on it and what you're putting in it. And then, then it really did become well, if we can do this, if we can optimize nutritional intake, we can create a product that can then be distributed to countries that are experiencing food shortages.
Yeah.
And that is basically when I started talking to Ken, my lawyer, about all of this. I kind of laid it out there for him, and he said, well, what if you incorporated as a public benefit corporation? And I said, well, I don't know what that is. And he explained it to me, and he said, that way it's built in to the systems that your company is for the betterment of humanity
Mm.
and not just going to be a turn and burn.
It's not just about making money, is what you're saying.
No,
Yeah.
and it was never about making money. It's about, fixing things that need to be fixed and helping where I can. I'm just one person, but one person can start a fire.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's absolutely, and that's one of the great things about entrepreneurship is that people, that's what they do, isn't it? I mean, entrepreneurs figure out solutions to problems. I mean, that's what entrepreneurship is really all about. Let me ask you about being the CEO. I mean, you strike me as somebody that um, has got a real sense of mission about the business. Yeah, that came across
Yes.
really strongly, certainly when we previously spoke. Um, but I also get the impression that you quite, I mean, I don't know whether this is totally true, but you seem to me to enjoy pushing away at the problem. I mean, is that the case?
Yeah. I definitely very mission focused. But when it comes to a problem, I'm absolutely going to blame the ADHD on that. I can't just stop. It really is an itch
Yeah.
that if there's you know a something that I need to figure out, it's an itch and I have to scratch it until I figure something out, because if my brain will not just let it go. It has to be, it's always a puzzle. It's always going to be a puzzle, and a puzzle has to be solved.
Hmm. And to what extent are you trying to prove somebody wrong? I mean, is there a part of this that is sort of you wanting to say to somebody, look, I can do this, and I can get this done.
That would be to my younger self
Right. Yeah,
who,
why do you say that?
okay, so um I have stopped and started more things than I can count. Um, I've went to I tried to go to school, tried to go to college a few times, but that didn't ever go through. I decided, I've wanted to be a doctor, I've wanted to be a lawyer, I've wanted to be an accountant, I've wanted to do this, that, the other. I picked up um, what well, how many times have I started going to the gym and stopped going to the gym? How many times
You and me
have
both.
um how many hobbies have I tried? You know, um there are so many things that I have tried, picked up, put down. Um it's exciting for a minute, and then once the dopamine wears off, it's out the door and I'm on to the next thing.
And
And
what's the difference?
anybody,
I mean, what's the difference? Because you've been at this for a while, haven't you? I mean,
I
what's the
have,
difference with this? Because when we spoke last time, you were saying, "No, I'm not going to quit until this works." I mean, what's the
this,
difference? I mean, why this particularly?
that is a really good question. And the only thing that I can think of is that the until there is no hunger, and until we actually have a way of bringing peace and harmony to wound care. There are people who are always going to need help.
Hmm.
And this for me is a long term project, because it's not something that I can fix in 30 seconds and lose hope for. I, in my heart, really want to see a change in the world.
Hmm.
And if, at some point, the dopamine runs out, you know what? There's still an issue. There's still a problem that needs to be fixed. And I just got to push harder.
Yeah, I guess the problem's never going to go away, is it?
No, it really isn't.
Mm.
And that's the thing is like, there's always going to be the next problem. And, or, somebody's going to push something down the road, or something's going to happen that at this point, for me, it's, I need to see this through because it really is life or death
Yeah.
in some situations, and that right there is not something I can just turn my back on.
Yeah.
This is completely different than anything I've ever looked at before in my life.
Yeah. And what sort of commitment has it taken to get as far as you've got? I mean, it strikes me as quite a lot.
It takes up, because I have a full-time job. This is still super new. Um, it takes up all of my other time. Thankfully, my children are grown and I'm not dealing with little ones running around trying, and I'm not, you know, ignoring anybody that needs my attention.
Mm.
So I have the time. I am an empty nester to a point. And so I think for me, it's easier to use all the extra time that I have now.
And I mean, on that journey, I mean, obviously it's taken a lot of commitment. I mean, you've just been talking about that. What sort of things have pushed you out of your comfort zone? I mean, because you don't come from this world. You don't come from this kind of farmer, if that maybe that's not the right way of describing it, but you don't come from that kind of chemistry farmer world. I mean,
Yeah.
has it pushed you out of your comfort zone? I mean, and if so, in what way?
Um, Definitely feeling good enough to speak or to people who have been in this world for 20 some odd years. When you're not in it and you need to get a doctor on board or get a chemist on board, you know, who am I? I'm just a woman who had an idea, who really is flying off the seat, the seat of her pants, just, trying to
Mm.
make something work, where, I'm trying to also get people who really know what they're doing to talk to me. That is intimidating.
Mm.
I don't have a degree. I don't have 30 years experience in, skincare or wound care or, you know, pharmaceuticals or anything like that. And, for me to put myself out there and say, I have this idea, I want you to help me with it, you know, I could be anybody and they could just pat me on the head and send me out the way. So that's been really kind of the hard part for me, is to express the desire and the passion that I have for it
Mm.
without having the experience.
Mm.
You
It's
know, I don't
interesting.
I don't have anybody in my family that has EB. I
Yeah.
don't have anybody in my family that has gone through a major fire. I don't have anybody in my family or anybody close to me that has gone through, feast and famine and whatever. So I don't have that lived experience,
Mm.
but it doesn't stop the desire
No.
to fix.
No, and that's pretty evident, actually. I mean, it was interesting. I saw an interview with Reese Witherspoon, you know, the actress, a little
Mhm.
while ago, and she talks about how she was admiring the problem, which was basically that there weren't enough strong women characters in movies and enough women making movies. She talks about how she kind of admired the problem for a while and then realized nobody was doing anything about it, so she did. I mean, she's just sold her business for 900 million or something, so she did a pretty good job on that. But it sounds to me it's the same sort of thing. I mean, nobody else has. I mean, maybe people have been admiring the problem that you're talking about, but nobody's done anything about it, or they haven't done enough about it, have they? And you are.
And and that's it. It's like, I can look at the problem and just like everybody else and say, yes, there's a problem. It's putting yourself out there to try to solve the problem, to
Mm.
actually, admit that it's not easy to solve a problem, but it needs to be done.
Yeah, yeah,
There's so many people who look at the world and they say, yes, malnourishment across, sub-Saharan Africa is a problem. They acknowledge that there's a problem,
mm. Don't do anything about it then.
but they have no idea where to start.
Yeah,
Or, then they start thinking about, oh, but there's also a problem here, or there's a problem at
yeah,
home, or, I've got 16 other things I've got to worry about. Whereas, there's those of us who say, yes, there's malnourishment in sub-Saharan Africa. How do I fix it?
yeah,
And, how do I make it better? And, you know, not only that, but not to knock it, but you know, the the product that is currently used for malnourishment is not something that the people in sub-Saharan Africa are used to eating. You know, so we have created a product that is identifiable to Americans because it's a nutritional enhanced peanut butter product, but that's not something that
mm.
anybody outside of America, peanut butter is an American thing,
Well,
right?
it's pretty big in the UK as well, but I guess
Okay.
we haven't got a problem with lots of people starving. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I get that.
But, when you think about getting nutrition
Mm,
to a population that needs it, yes, the product is fantastic and it
mm.
is shelf stable and it does high calories and it does what it needs to do. But what about how it makes the people who are using it feel?
Yeah, yeah,
How does that mother who is trying to just live and keep her baby alive, how does she feel about peanut
yeah,
butter?
yeah,
Whereas we can create products that would be more comforting to that mother to give to her child who, she can understand it and it feels
yeah.
like
Yeah, I get
home.
that. Yeah. Let me ask you, I mean, you don't, I mean, you've already said you don't come from an academic background, but it does
Yep,
strike me that you value learning.
I do. Um, you know, um, I have always been a reader. Um, I I wanted to go to school. Like I said, I tried
Mm,
a few times. It just wasn't for me. Um, it didn't keep my attention span.
mm.
Um,
I get that.
yeah,
I mean, a lot of it's
it,
boring. I mean, I went to university. A lot of it was pretty dull, to be quite frank with you.
yeah, and
So I get why, doesn't hold people's attention necessarily.
yeah, and so this avenue of being able to research and the
Mm,
way that we can research now is fascinating. I mean, the entire internet and the use of AI, and it's just, it is so fascinating to be in this time and to be able to pick up my phone, and if I have a question, immediately get the answer
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
dive further in to understand, what's going on. Because, all of this that I've done, it's going to sound crazy, but it's all been done on my Samsung.
Mm.
Every single thing that I have accomplished in this last year, year plus, has been on my phone.
Mm. It just goes to show how powerful phones are, doesn't it, really? Let
Yeah.
me ask you, one of the things I think is interesting is that academic learning is fine. You know, you go to lectures and you listen and you make notes and you write
Mhm.
essays, and that's all fine. I mean, like I said, I don't think it's that exciting, but there's nothing wrong with that. I think, though, that real learning is about understanding the consequences of your actions. You know, you do something or you don't do something, and then that has an impact. And
Yeah.
that's real learning, it seems to me. That's the most important stuff. Let me ask you about what you've learned on your journey. I mean, what would you say you've learned? I mean, you've had quite a few successes so far. What sort of things would you say you've learned from the successes that you've had?
Um, First off, that I can do it.
Hmm.
That, you know,
Which presumably boosts your confidence.
yeah, I mean, I'm sitting on two non-provisional patents. I had four provisionals. I'm sitting on two non-provisional patents that, or well, patent, they've just been recently filed. I had no idea that that was even something that I would be able
Hmm.
to do
Hmm.
as just, me sitting in, my living room or sitting on my phone, that was crazy to
Hmm.
me. That is, that is not something you think of when you wake up in the morning. You don't sit there and go, hey, today I'm going to file a patent, because, you know, that's not a normal thing.
No.
I mean, for most people, it's not a normal thing. You don't think about that. Um, let's see, what else? Um, I've definitely learned more about how I react to the outside world and how I see things differently than a lot of people. And it's probably, most entrepreneurs, I'm guessing, have the same thing. We see a problem, we want to fix it. Um,
And often see it in a different way to other people. I mean, that's the
yeah.
other way. It's not just
And,
seeing the
and
problem, it's also seeing it in a slightly different way and coming at the, trying to solve it
like,
in a different way.
yeah.
Yeah.
And being able to see it from 47 different angles, um, to try and see what actually works. My brain, I always said, my brain is an enigma on string theory. I mean, it is crazy to be up inside my head. And I didn't understand it until this year.
Mm.
The
But
way
you're
that,
saying you understand yourself better as a result of doing it.
yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Just explain why that is the case. I mean, why would you say that?
Um, Honestly, before, I just thought I was lazy. I just, you know, I give up easy. I'm lazy. I just don't want to do it. Um, this year and everything that I've accomplished has really shown me that it wasn't laziness and it wasn't me giving up. It really was the ADHD, that I didn't acknowledge because, I didn't know that it was there. I had no clue. And, when I was growing up, or when we were growing up, ADHD was little boys bouncing off the walls.
Mm.
who couldn't sit still. That was the only definition of ADD and ADHD. They didn't look at and women, they didn't look at girls. Girls didn't have
Mm.
ADHD. They weren't bouncing off the walls. They didn't. And so as I've really dug deep and tried to understand myself more this year, and I have my oldest son to thank for that because he got diagnosed and he said, Mom, it's you. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, um, well, Dad doesn't have ADHD and I had to get it from somewhere. So you should look at yourself.
That must have been a
And
difficult thing to hear.
that was crazy
Mm.
because I was like, no, because I'm not bouncing off the walls and you never bounced off the walls. And but okay. So of course that sent me down another research rabbit hole. And everything I read, I was like, oh, huh, okay, that makes sense. And that makes sense. And that makes sense. And so I called my doctor and I was like, all right, girl, what do you, and she's like, oh, I'm so glad you finally realized.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, because my doctor has ADHD and she is, you know, I recognize that in her when we first met.
Mm.
Absolutely. So when I was like, okay, so this is what Andrew said, and I've been reading, and she's like, uh-huh, I'm so glad you finally realized it.
Mm.
Why
But what
didn't you
you're
say something?
what you're also saying, it seems to me. Sorry, we're going off at a slight tangent here, but what you're also
Sorry.
saying is that
Again, tangent. Welcome to my world.
yeah. Well, the thing that struck me is that what I'm hearing is that a chunk of your success is to do with perseverance. It's to
Yes.
do with, as you describe it, going down the rabbit hole. I want to find out about this. I want to figure out a solution to this thing and not giving up
Mhm.
until you figured it out, which is perseverance. And I mean, there's a famous American president, I forget who it is, who said perseverance is everything. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. ADHD, you don't associate perseverance with ADHD, though, do you? There's
No,
quite
but
an interesting angle there.
you know what that is? That's the autism part.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, that's the autism part because when you're
Obsessing about
really,
things.
yes, welcome to my head when you
So
have
let
both.
me ask you. So that's a good thing. I mean, you've discovered something that's really good and it's really powerful. I mean, it's really had a powerful effect and driven you forward. And
Yes.
now you've got these patents registered, and you're just on the launch pad for all the other things that you want to do. So that seems to me to be a really great thing. Let me ask you about. I mean, those successes are great. Let me ask you about the flip side. Let me ask you about what you've learned or what has been revealed to you from the things that haven't worked, from the failures along the way. Now, most entrepreneurs I talk to will say they get things wrong all the time. I mean, is that the case for you? And what have you learned from those mistakes?
Oh, okay. So there are a lot. One of the things that when I was thinking about all of this, I was also started to think about if I create these products or this specific product that I was considering or am still considering for the malnourished,
Hmm.
you know, I have to put it in some kind of packaging. But then I don't want to then create trash.
Okay, so you want to
And
make it sustainable.
I wanted, yeah, that is actually how I met Kelvin, my biopolymer material scientist co-founder, because I wanted to then create a sustainable materials to put my own packaging with my own product. Oh my God. Like all of a sudden I had three different arms to this company that my poor brain was having a hard time focusing enough to really get any one thing accomplished because
Mm.
I was pulling myself in three completely different directions, and I was getting nowhere
Mm.
because when you're, at least when you have one product, you can push forward and you say, okay, I have one product, I'm in this way and I'm going that way, right? When your brain is constantly saying, but what if, but what about this, but what if we go here, all of a sudden I'm three different directions, and
That must be
really
difficult, actually, to
it,
deal
it
with.
was it is because you don't know where to really put the focus. um and I spent a lot of time on the biomaterial, and finally, you know Kelvin brought it up that a major company announced that they had um, decided to focus on this specific thing, and it turned out to be exactly what we were working on.
Mm.
And I had to pull the trigger and decide that that was not something that I was willing to fight with.
Mm. So you're
So
using their packaging now, are you?
we don't have any product yet, um, since we're still in the stage. But at some point, there is going to be that conversation. Instead of creating my own,
Mm.
um, there will be a conversation that way. But I had to pull a trigger and I had to, let
Mm.
it go, which was really hard because I had put so much time and energy and focus and Kelvin's time into that
Mm.
process that it was really hard, but it made the most sense because one, I didn't have the resources, and two, this other company is huge and
You
major
can't
player,
compete. You
and
can't
you can't
compete.
compete.
No.
And you had, that for me was like, okay, so yes, I filed a provisional patent on this tri-layer system that I, worked out and Kelvin and I were working on, but I had to walk away from it
Mm. So are you
because,
saying then that failure to get that has taught you that you can make tough decisions? Is that what you're
yeah,
saying?
yeah, I was, it was difficult
Mm.
because, you don't want to stop once again, I want to see things through.
Mm.
That's what I'm pushing myself to do. But I also had to make the hard decision that
Mm.
it didn't make sense. So all of that time and energy
Mm.
ended up being wasted. That money that I spent on the provisional patent ended up being wasted.
Mm.
Um, but it was better in the long run for the company for me to then focus on what I can do
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to
And that's to come back
focusing.
to the point I was making about real learning. I mean, it's understanding the consequences of actions that is really what learning's about. And that's a great example of that, isn't it? Really. I mean,
Yeah.
those are really difficult decisions, but somebody's got to make them, and they are to do with decision the outcome of decisions that you made earlier on, aren't they? So I mean, it's a really powerful thing there. What would you say you've learnt about building a business? I mean, we've talked about what you've learned from success, what you've learned from failure. What would you
Mhm.
say you've learnt from the process of building a business? I mean, what's that revealed to you about yourself?
It is not easy and it's
Mm.
not fast. You know, People who can go from zero to $1 million in 3 months, more power to them. But
Mm.
that's not the normal experience as far
No.
as I can tell. You know, you see on well, on LinkedIn or on Facebook or in the media, you see all of these, companies that have gone through 3 raises in 6 months, and you're like, how?
Yeah.
Because that's just not normal.
Yeah.
That the average person is not going to be able to make $160 million in 6 months. That's
Mm.
just not how it
Though, I mean, I think a
works.
lot of those stories are not necessarily totally true either. I mean, there's a lot of, I'm not sure I
Well,
believe a
again,
lot of those.
media and
Mm.
marketing is amazing,
Mm.
and they want you to believe what they put out there. Um, but I think that, for me, it's the realization that it is blood, sweat, and tears.
Comes back to the perseverance thing, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, because, you're literally not going to make $160 million in 6 months. It's just not going to happen.
Mm.
And in the grand scheme of things, we've been doing this for a year and 4 months or whatever since, May of 25, I think, when I sat down, April or May of 25, when I first sat down and asked the question. I've lost more money than, I've put so much money and so much time and energy into it, and we have zero revenue. That's a tough sell right there too, is
Yet.
yet.
Zero revenue yet.
When you're looking to grow, and they, say the grant application that you're looking at says, how long have you been in business? And you say, well, I've been in business for over a year. And they want to know what your revenue is. And you go, revenue? What's revenue?
Mm.
Because, it's still building. It's still
But that's
creating.
why, I mean, that's why you need investors and grants for those early stage companies, because they don't
Yeah,
get to revenue for some time, do
yeah.
they? That's
But
the point of that.
there's some of those grants that say we're early, we're into early, but you have to have at least $250,000 in revenue.
Mm.
That's not. How are you getting $250,000 in revenue and still need a grant?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, it, I would love to be at $250,000 in revenue. Then at that point, I'd be like, I'm good.
Yeah,
You
I'm sure you
know,
will be soon. I'm sure you will be. One last, I'm just conscious of the time. One last question before we wind up. If you were to offer a bit of advice to somebody starting out on a journey like yours, I mean, or somebody, a bit of advice to somebody who wants to do something similar, and what would it be?
just keep going.
Mm.
You can do it, because if not you, why? Who?
Mm.
You know that if you have the heart and the drive, then don't let anybody say no,
Mm.
because it's worth it. I mean, yes, it's a lot, but it's absolutely worth it. And I'm very excited to someday actually have a company that I can be proud of, with employees that are happy,
Mm.
because that, again, is another goal of mine, is to actually employ people who enjoy what they do and want to come to work, because I know a lot of us go to our 9 to 5 and we're just there for the paycheck.
Yeah, yeah. Tamara, that's a great piece of advice to end with. Thank you for that. I mean, it comes back to the kind of perseverance thing you're saying, don't give up. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really good piece of advice, because sometimes it can feel like the journey's never ending. So knowing that you've got to stick at it is really half the battle. So anyway, thank you for making the time to come and have a chat with me. I mean, it's a
Of course.
great proposition, and I've no doubt it will be a success. I mean,
I appreciate that.
it's a really worthwhile thing that you're doing. So thank you for making time to come and have a chat with us about it. And I look forward to hearing about it in the future.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul. You have a great day.
You too. Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye.